All right, so a few minutes early. I hope y'all like this skirt. Look, I have this whole vision. My house is super old. I just moved in here and I'm trying to do like some old timey photos. And so I pulled this out. I just like ordered it off Amazon. And this is the first time that I've tried it on, so it's kind of fun. Don't mind I still have shades up. I'm going to do curtains. I have so much I'm doing to this house. I hadn't done a live for a while, but I really wanted to do one right quick just to talk about this FAA thing. Because I shared about it and I realized it seems a little fear-mongery, and I wanted to talk about the realities of that EKG change that they have since changed the rules on. So unfortunately, I couldn't find anything that really justified what their reasoning was. A lot of people are saying it's because of the CV product. But I couldn't find where they kind of gave a reason. But I did find a lot of background on what their requirements are, and I can kind of give some insight there. So first of all, if y'all saw that video, that was Tucker Carlson. He was interviewing a lady. I think she was like a surgeon, something with the Army or the military, and she was kind of weighing in that it didn't make sense from a safety standpoint. What they changed was actually, okay, so if y'all know anything about EKGs, and I should draw a little one here, but basically you have the P wave, and then you have the QRS, you have the QRS complex, and then comes back and you have a T wave. So this isn't very good. Not a very good drawing. But so the P wave comes before the QRS complex, and then afterwards that's repolarization, that's the T wave. So what they changed was this distance between the P wave and the QRS complex. And why that's important is because that is indicative of something called heart block. Now, and this is AV heart block. There are different types. There's also SA nodal heart block. There's bundle branch blocks, different types of heart blocks. But when you say heart block, you're usually talking about AV node blocks. So there's actually 4 types, but 2 of them kind of go together. So there is first degree heart block, which is what this basically is, what they're allowing. So that there's first degree heart block, second degree heart block, and then third degree heart block. Third degree heart block would be the most severe. That's literally complete heart block, where there's pretty much just no association between the P waves and the QRS complex. They're both kind of just doing their own thing. And that's a little bit different than AFib, but I'm not going to get into that. And usually when somebody has a complete heart block, they're going to have a pretty slow heart rate, and that can set them up for sudden cardiac death. But this first degree heart block is what it is it's an elongation between the P wave and the QRS complex. So basically it's usually asymptomatic, and I even saw a video of a nurse saying that pretty much athletes and young people can have a longer interval between those two things. So they can kind of live in a first degree heart block is what she was saying, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Now, a more likely to be asymptomatic, cause dizziness, possibility of passing out, weakness, anything like that, would be the longer PR interval, over 300 milliseconds, which is not what they okayed. So normal PR interval would be between 120 and 200 milliseconds. They approved all the way up to 300 milliseconds, so that's actually first degree heart block. But over 300 milliseconds is usually when there would be more problems. And they actually addressed that. I was able to find their provider kind of data sheet, and they talked about how to address that. But basically, it's not, as much as we say, oh, it's a big deal, not a big deal, it's usually not asymptomatic. It's usually not symptomatic, so shouldn't be as big of a deal as something that we're worrying about. Let's see. So I want to talk about the things that disqualify, because I don't know if y'all know, but this is kind of just like a CDL license, obviously even more severe than that. But if anybody works in healthcare or works in transportation, drives big trucks or anything, then you know that even to drive like those big trucks, you have to have health screening. So they have a special guidelines for the FAA, and theirs have kind of all-encompassing things. So I found a couple of sheets on that if anyone's interested. So basically vision, they have requirements for distant vision, intermediate vision, and also like near vision. So pretty much like the worst. So distant vision, you need to have 20/20, intermediate and like near vision, it was like up to maybe 20/40. Now, interesting enough, the EKG requirements on that sheet say they start at 35. So if you have a pilot that is under 35, they're actually, according to what I found, and I will send it to anybody the link that wants it, they're actually not required to have an EKG at all. So you wouldn't really know what their PR interval was unless they had some type of other issue. So starting at 35, they get one EKG, and then they get them annually after the age of 40. Let's see. They also had things on there like, okay, I don't even know what my notes said here, but they also had ENT wise, like, you know, they kind of went through all the body systems. Can't have like any kind of vertigo, heart rate. They didn't have a specific number in mind there, but BP, they did have a maximum 155/95. Mental health wise, you know, they said no psychosis, no bipolar, no personality, disorders that are severe. They didn't say anything about anxiety, depression, any of those things on this sheet, at least. No substance abuse, no substance dependence, unless there was like data supporting full recovery. Then they listed like a whole bunch of things that are like no-nos, like this disqualifies, and they had 3 different levels. So some of them, it was like first class. I believe that that's like commercial airline pilots. And then they had different classes of pilots on there too that had slightly different roles. A big one, though, diabetes mellitus on any hypoglycemic agent. So that would be like oral, or like if you're on insulin or anything, those would be a disqualification. Any chest pains, they call it angina. Coronary heart disease, any history of that, either treated or, untreated but significant. Any history of MI, any history of a heart valve, any history of heart transplant, history of, if you have a pacemaker, and then those same things I talked about, psychosis, personality disorder, bipolar, substance abuse, obviously epilepsy's on there too, and then any, like, if you've had recent undetermined history of loss of consciousness or like nervous system problems, like transient problems, controlling your body nervous system wise. So those are some of the things that they use. And then I was able to find where they had like a sheet of like, okay, this is for the doctor. And if they look at the EKGs, like what, it shows all the different problems that can it didn't really show all of them, but it showed a bunch of the different problems that can come up. And then like what the guidelines are, like what are they going to do if they see this or that. So actually to me, the most interesting one was if they've had an ablation for AFib. This was more interesting than the other one, and I don't know how long this has been the rule, but if they've had an ablation for AFib, which AFib, I don't know if y'all know what that is, but that's like actually your basically your atrium is not squeezing correctly. It's just basically like, doing whatever while your the rest of your heart beats effectively. So that's why I can set you up for like pooling of the blood in the atrium, and that can cause like, blood clots, things like that to be thrown, like strokes, different things. So if you've had an ablation for AFib, they said they had to wait 3 months and then do a 24-hour Holter monitor. That was actually interesting to me. I would have thought that would have been a lifelong disqualification, but apparently not according to this. I don't know how often that comes up because basically, AFib, it goes a lot with coronary artery disease, different heart issues and everything like that. So I don't know how often it comes up that somebody has it and not one of the other disqualifying factors that they get an ablation and then go on to fly. But that was on there, and that was a little bit more alarming to me than the other stuff even. SVT was another one that's like supraventricular tachycardia. You have like a very fast heart rate. That one they had a protocol and a 24-hour Holter monitor for, which I also thought was kind of interesting because I would have thought that would just basically be a disqualification. And then with this first degree heart block, AV block, this data sheet that was put out in, I think it was October of 2022, they did show on there that, for first degree AV block up to 300 milliseconds, that was, I don't think there was basically like anything. It was, as long as they didn't have other issues, totally fine. But first degree AV block greater than 300 milliseconds, they recommended Holter, cardiac evaluation, and then it said like they had to make an FAA decision on there. So that kind of sums up that guideline. Again, I don't think, the problem with some of these heart rhythms is that they later, if they are due to a pathological process, they degrade into like worsening heart blocks. This probably, when you have just a first degree heart block, wouldn't necessarily be something that would just happen randomly. But it is interesting that they changed the guidelines, and it would be good to know exactly what prompted them to do that. Now, when I was on there, I found something else that I thought was a little bit interesting, and I thought you guys would be interested in, and you can tell me what you think. So they have a special sheet and they have also like classes and medications and stuff like decision making and how that works, but they have a special sheet for V products and how to approach those. So if a pilot gets a V product, how long do they have to wait to be cleared to fly? So with the traditional V products, they had a bunch of random ones listed. Some of them were not ones that I think we really get here. I guess maybe they had more to do with flying to other countries. But basically ones like hepatitis A, hepatitis B, flu, no waiting period. You can get it, you can fly right away. But it had the CV products on there, all, 4 of them, I believe, listed. I think it was AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, and the mRNA products. If you get one of those, you have a 48-hour waiting period before you can fly. And then they had a little asterisk or like a little number 2 next to the Johnson & Johnson one. And they talked about, I guess like any signs of thrombosis. I don't know why I guess I'm not supposed to talk about that. Are y'all still there? It tried to pause me. So that was interesting that there's a little bit of a waiting period around those products. I don't know if they're trying to play it off like it's just because they're new or, what. They really only listed like a specific concern for the Johnson & Johnson one. But they did say if there was any signs of side effects or anything like that, then like it would need further evaluation. The only other V product that they had a waiting period for was rabies, the rabies V, which most people probably know. That's actually like a kind of a crazy one where you have to get like a bunch of shots in your stomach. Now, I don't know if that's true now. They might have upgraded it. I'm sure they're working on an mRNA. Hi from Calgary. Hey, fully awakened. Awesome. So I don't know if that one, if it's still like the series, but it had a 72-hour waiting period for that one. But that's kind of like an extreme case, so it's kind of interesting. Someone said rabies, no big deal. But that's kind of an extreme case. So it was interesting to lump those CV products in there. And again, like I said, they weren't very clear if it was just because they were new and under emergency use, or if they had specific concerns aside from the Johnson & Johnson one. But good to know. So it sounds like every time a pilot is getting one of these boosters, if they are, hopefully they just kind of stop doing that, they would not be flying for 48 hours according to this protocol. But I thought it was interesting. I think it's always good to look deeper into stuff. We get kind of, and I'm guilty of the same thing. It's interesting to look at what did they change, why. We want to ask questions. And then we also want to know, like, how scary is this? Like, is this really going to stop me from flying? Personally, and y'all can tell me what you think, that change in their EKG requirements, that change in the PR interval that they're willing to allow, is that something that would hold you back from flying? I'm going to say that personally, I don't think it's going to hold me back. I really hadn't flown in a long time until recently. I just didn't ever really like flying and also had a small child. But when I went last time, I felt very comfortable with it, and I was kind of just like, and I know there's a lot of concern about, pilots having side effects and stuff. We worry about that a lot, but I don't know, for whatever reason, I wasn't worried. And I think I've just started to live like more in faith and fear. And when I originally read that, I was like, that's kind of interesting. But as I read through all this stuff more, and I mean, I have a history of how we used to work in the hospital. It didn't really scare me, so not really going to be on my list of reasons not to fly, but it is interesting, and we should always inform ourselves, and it is good to look into the reasons, and if anybody can find a, more like clear-cut reason why they said that they changed it, I would love to see that. But otherwise, I mean, I just moved into my new house. Hope you're all doing good. I've had tons of projects here. It's been absolutely wild. Let's see, someone says, no, I still can't believe diabetes is a disqualifying disease. Well, why do you not believe that? Because that's actually a disqualifying disease, even just from driving like big trucks. I don't know if you knew that, but you can't drive like a commercial, in most places, at least any state that I've lived in and like either had a rotation in like during school or that I worked in, I believe here too. I don't think you can't drive big trucks if you're on like insulin or hypoglycemic medications. The reason for that is it makes a lot of sense because you can easily get a low blood sugar if you overshoot, and what happens is people basically pass out. So that for operating heavy machinery is controlled diabetes is not life-threatening to anyone. Well, it's not about the control, it's about the means of control. The medications can cause hypoglycemia, and that's why it's disqualifying. Yeah, I'm a fly despite all the changes. Yeah, me too. It's not gonna make me, stay at home. What would is if they told me I had to wear a mask or get a poke myself or anything like that. You can pass out as diabetic, puts passengers at risk. Yeah, if you got a low blood sugar, that's a problem. Now, it doesn't say diabetes. Like, if you have type 2 diabetes and it's lifestyle controlled, they're not disqualifying you. This is only for people on hypoglycemic agents, so insulin or oral, like if you're on metformin, something like that, because those can have the side effects of low blood sugar. And so that is why those are disqualifying. And to me, it makes perfect sense as somebody who worked in healthcare, and also just knowing that they disqualify just even people operating big machinery like semi trucks, transport trucks, stuff like that. Of course, they're going to say the same thing for pilots. So, but yeah, I don't really have that much else for y'all. There hasn't been too much news. The only thing I've been listening to some podcasts, there's just tons of talks about Steven Crowder, the Daily Wire. And to me, obviously, and probably to all of you, that's not that interesting because I've never turned down $50 million before. No one's ever offered me that for anything. So it's not that interesting for me to listen to people argue over whether or not they should get $50 million and, control of their content and stuff like that. But I understand why it's such big news, because the people reporting on it are content creators, and content creators care about that. But personally, it's not really an issue. Twitter has been pretty fun. I've been asking some questions over there. Oh, I'll talk about the food one. So I had a ton, so many people answered that question on here. I didn't think it would be such a popular question, but it really was. So over on Twitter, I asked, I said, my son and we both eat nonstop. I have to eat the second I wake up, and so does he, and he's eating all day. I'm just handing him food, and we're both eating pretty much all the time. But we both have good BMIs, it doesn't affect us or anything. And so I asked y'all, what do you think that I avoid? And I got tons of answers, and some of them were really fun. Commercial pilots have co-pilots to help them in an emergency, unlike a truck driver. Yeah, but that's still not ideal. And I mean, if you want to take that up with the FAA, you can. I don't make the decisions. I'm just saying I don't disagree with the decision. I think that is the correct decision. If we're fighting over a PR, if we're worried about a little PR interval on, an EKG that's not usually ever really pathological, it's kind of just on, on the spectrum of that, usually asymptomatic and everything's sometimes just present in healthy people. If we're worried about that, like I would definitely be worried about somebody being on like insulin or metformin or any of those hypoglycemic agents. So I agree with their decision there. I think if they change that requirement, that would make air travel a lot less safe, in my opinion. So what else was I saying? Oh yeah, the food thing. So basically, like, people were guessing all kind of stuff. Now, nobody guessed anything silly like I don't eat meat, which I was wondering about. The entire CDO requirement is nothing more than money. I disagree with that personally, but I just don't think, and I don't think it necessarily has to be law, but I think that it's smart business for those companies doing those CDL requirements and everything, like making sure that they have safe drivers and everything on the road. So I think it's just good business for them anyways. But yeah, so I got a lot of, the number one, which was the answer, is sugar. Like, basically we eat fats, proteins, carbs. Like, I'm never going to be like a non-carber, you know. A lot of people, they want to do paleo, which paleo is good, but that means like no processed food. So you're eating like nuts. I don't even know if they eat rice. Somebody let me know if they eat rice. I know they do potatoes, stuff like that. So it's not like they're doing no carbs, but like paleo is very, you know, you have to eat like no processed food. So we don't do that. That's like a little too extreme for me, although I do think it is one of the better ways to eat, like to make sure that you are always eating like basically pretty much whole foods. So paleo is a good one, but that's not what we do. Let me see. A lot of people do want to do carnivore now, and I get it. Like, and actually Samantha and I have talked about this before. Some of the beauty of carnivore is the fact that the people aren't eating gluten anymore. And so they get a lot of those health benefits of like the anti-inflammatory, you're not eating gluten, you're not eating sugar either. So they get a lot of those anti-inflammatory health benefits, and they're also, you know, eating like good high quality meats and everything. So that you can see a lot of health benefits with carnivore diet. But is it because they don't eat carbs, or is it just because they don't eat gluten and sugar? I think it's the latter. And so I don't believe, first of all, like there are 3 macronutrients: proteins, fats, carbs. And I'm a fitness coach also, and I've been doing this for years and years, like 20 years, been working out. And I've probably been trying to eat right, like, which has changed and evolved over time, like as I've learned more. But I've been trying to eat right since I was like probably like 10 or 12, like pretty young. So I have a lot of experience in this realm. And I do not believe in like cutting out an entire macronutrient and being like, I'm not going to eat fat. Well, that's crazy, because your body uses fats, cholesterols, fatty acids, different things for all kind of stuff in your bodies. It's super important. Like, you know, just even like cell walls and everything. There's like, you know, all the lipids line up. They're used to like make those things. Like, you need lipids, like you need fat, your brain needs fat. What else? Carbs. Like, people want to limit carbs a lot, because that's like, to me, that's like biohacking, and I don't do biohacking. Like, I actually like don't really believe in anything anymore that's like too over the top outside of reality, of like you had to like try to go to a lab to figure this out, or you had to do something super unnatural to figure it out. So not eating carbs, to me, that's like a biohacking thing. People try to do ketosis, which ketosis, like in its truest sense, like if you are like diabetic, people get this, they get diabetic ketoacidosis. If their blood sugars are really high, they don't make insulin. There's like a type 1 diabetes thing, but it's actually like a very dangerous place to be in. But your body is using like an alternative type of metabolism just to try to stay alive. So I don't agree with trying to think like I'm gonna get into that realm of this thing that is unnatural because like I'm gonna get some benefit of like weight loss. You know what I'm saying? Now, I understand they say that there are certain people with like I think seizures or some neurological stuff that is helpful for. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like you want to lose weight. Like, I don't prescribe to that. No. Carbs are healthy. Your body is designed, you know, carbs give you energy. They fill up your muscles with glycogen. They help you store store, not store, but they help you have like ready to use glucose and everything when you need it. So it doesn't make sense to cut out an entire macronutrient and think that you're like somehow doing better. So I don't do that. I believe in protein, carbs, fats. Your body needs them all. Your body also needs complete protein. So you need all the essential amino acids, and that's why it's very, very hard for people to be like vegetarian, or I'm sure even much, much harder would be vegan to get like that complete protein profile to make sure you're getting like every single amino acid. So I don't do that. Now, I'm not going to knock anyone's personal belief when it comes to like being vegan or vegetarian if that's what they want to do, but it does make it harder to get like the full protein profile, which is important. Like, I don't think you can say now, unless you have some like weird metabolic disorder where you can't have, like certain amino acids or something that's different. But basically for almost everyone, like you're going to want all your amino acids, complete proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, like to be as healthy as possible. So what was I going with this? Oh yeah. So what I limit is literally just sugar. And I'm not talking about, this is the other thing where people go off the rails and I think they get like a little bit nutty on, like, not to be rude or anything, but like some people think like no sugar is like fruit is just sugar and stuff. Yeah, like fruit is technically, fructose and like whatever, there's other, glucose, fructose, whatever. But it is technically those things. But fruit, like you're going to eat a whole apple and get, I don't know, let's say it has 60 calories in it or even 100 calories. Like how many grams of carbs of sugar are you really getting? Like, it's not like you're sitting there eating like a bunch of Oreos or like a king cake, like if you're from Louisiana. It's a little bit of sugar and it's good for you. They also have different nutrients and everything. So I would never say like, don't eat fruit. But what I'm talking about is like sugar. I don't just sit there, like I'm not going to have a donut. I don't go out for dessert. I don't buy my son like candy in the store and stuff. Now, once in a while we got like a lollipop the other day, but I don't even take him out for like ice cream and stuff. Like weirdly, he doesn't even like that. But if I'm going to give him stuff that has like sugar, it's usually like very natural. Like I buy him like, some Annie's cookies or something like that. So there's sugar in those, but it's not like high fructose corn syrup. It's not like to the amount of like a real dessert. So that's basically how we eat. He eats a lot of peanut butter, lots of fats. I eat, like my fats are mostly like from meat. Like I super love steak. I eat a ton of steak. Somebody said refined sugar. Yeah, exactly. Refined sugar. So I'm okay with natural sugars. Same thing, carbohydrates like sweet potatoes, stuff like that. Those are all fantastic. I think they're totally fine. But that's basically the only thing we limit is like sugar, junk food. Now, Alice says that we don't eat restaurant food, so we're not going out for pizza. If I wanted to make pizza, which we don't do dairy, but if I wanted to make pizza, like I would make it at my house and do it like my way. There's much better recipes. Like I actually had this amazing recipe. I haven't done this in forever, but you use Greek yogurt and self-rising flour and you just mix it together. Oh, seed oils. Yeah, I'll get to that in a second. So you just mix this self-rising flour and the Greek yogurt together, and you can make like this amazing crust, and it's so good. Like it's like the best pizza crust you've ever had. I think it's like almost like just a 1-to-1, maybe it's like 2-to-1 ratio of the but I found that online. I think it was like a Weight Watchers thing or something. So good. So I would just make that, you know what I mean? If we were going to have pizza, like I wouldn't go out for like greasy Domino's or whatever. We just don't do it. Same thing with like a cheeseburger or whatever. Like if we have like a free meal, like not that I control what my son eats to that extent, but if we're going to eat like random stuff, like I'm going to do like Thai food, something that's still like pretty much like meat and, like meat, carbs, like rice or something, and just like more seasoning. So I keep it pretty clean all the time. If I want something sweet, it's going to be a protein bar, like especially, if I'm, like oh, I'm eating off today off my diet, like it's going to be like some type of like, protein bar type of cookie or whatever. I forget the brands that I like, but, oh, and actually First Form has some really good, they had these like, what were they? Peppermint bark protein bars. I need to try to get some more, but they're probably out. They were from the holidays. Those were so good. Somebody said seed oils. Okay, I get the seed oil thing. I know like seed oil is not great, canola oil is not great, but I also think that hating seed oils is like a little bit of a fad. And whenever something is like a little bit of a fad, the cookie dough ones are the best. Are you talking about from First Form? I'm gonna have to order them. I've been waiting to order more stuff till I moved. But I need to get some. I haven't tried the cookie dough. I feel like I tried a different flavor, but I got a bunch of those peppermint bark ones. They were so good. What was I saying? Oh yeah, seed oil. Seed oil to me, yeah, it might be a problem, but I think it's a little bit of a fad. I have an issue. There's something that we do, okay? Like this is cultural. We villainize stuff and we get like super passionate about it. Everyone does it and we blame it for all of our problems, and I think it's over the top sometimes. So an example of that would be like microplastics and stuff. Everyone's saying that that's the reason we have low testosterone. It's all about the plastics. It's all about the seed oils. Well, I don't think so. Like, I'm sure those are factors, but I think that there's other very real factors. Like if you look at the fact, I shared this over on Twitter, grip strength for men like under 30 or something is like down so drastically from what it used to be, especially like in the 1980s and everything. Some of that is just sedentary lifestyle. We're just in here, like I've noticed this when I see like children's hands now. You'll see like little kids and their hands look like they're like made for computers, but it turns out that actually all the way up till 30, they're like that because they have never worked outside, climbed stuff, done with the tools, you know what I mean? And so I think that there's something that people need to accept is that it's not all what we eat, and it's not all, like life isn't all just happening to us. That's not the only thing that plays in part to your hormones. Sometimes it's also your lifestyle, like the things you do. And so if you're not out there living like a masculine lifestyle, like I also think that plays into the fact of having lower testosterone. Same thing as like a woman, women's hormones can get very messed up from stress. Like if I'm just stressed out, I'm not living a very feminine lifestyle, my hormones are going to take a hit too. It's not because plastic touched my water bottle, and I'm not saying that stuff isn't probably a factor in something, but I'm just saying what's the biggest factor. The biggest factor is probably that I'm stressed out. I'm at work all the time. I'm like anxious, this isn't true, but I'm just saying, like giving you an example. And that is messing up my hormones more because I have cortisol. I'm not like, living kind of like in a state of calmness where my hormones are like working correctly. They're like literally fighting physiology. Same thing. Actually, I think the blue lights might be playing a factor too, like especially for people like their sleep patterns, like melatonin can't go up at the right times, cortisol is like surging too early and stuff because we basically have a lot of unnatural light. So that one I kind of do buy, but I think there's so many factors in play, and I think we need to really think about that. Like and then here's another thing that I've been thinking about is like when it comes to the testosterone thing, is some of it also that like men are taught to like be good now. Like they're taught not to be as masculine as they used to be. Like they're taught basically like we're all supposed to just sit down, be quiet, not stand up for anything. Like basically we're all taught to be good. So does that affect testosterone? Because just like health, anything in health, like even if I had cancer, let's say I had cancer, if I believe that I'm going to get better and I tell myself, there's actually like a mental aspect to this. And I tell myself, you're going to get better. You're going to get through this. You're going to be fine. You actually have a better chance of being fine, of getting through it, of doing better in everything than you would if you had like the attitude, like a defeatist attitude. So your mindset and your body actually work together. And I think that some of it is like we're very defeated in our society, and basically the government kind of, you know, just it enslaves us, puts rules on us. We're like in school all day and work all day. We can't stand up for ourselves. They don't let us breathe the air if they don't want to. Those things like actually probably affect our hormones more than anything else. 2 minutes staring into the morning sun would surprise you how much it helps you sleep and other things. Okay. Oh, that's good. Children are socialized in school, and I notice the most aggressive tendencies are removed. You think that school's helpful? I think that school's probably worse, but thank you for sharing that. They have demonized masculinity, yes. And it shows we watch for social media to government, to chemicals in food, air, water, even clothes. Yeah, all of it matters. But I think like our mindset is like one of the bigger aspects, I would say. I think if we embody like, you know, as a woman, like more feminine energy, like our hormones will probably balance themselves more. And as a man, if we embody more masculine energy, our hormones will probably balance themselves more. So I think that people need to think about that. I'm not saying like it's wrong to avoid seed oils or any of those plastics, like anything you want to do, probably great, but I don't stress over that stuff. Kids are conditioned from young age not to question anything. Yes, that is so true. And actually I never listened to Tim Pool, and I actually like decided lately I didn't think I liked Candace Owens, but I did listen to Candace Owens on Tim Pool the other day. They were talking about the Steven Crowder thing, which wasn't that interesting to me, but they talked about other stuff too. And one of those things was like, I guess Candace never graduated college and Tim Pool never graduated high school. And they were talking about how people like try to tell them like that would hold them back and they're not that smart and stuff. But Candace was talking about something that I think too, a lot of people think this now, is like however much time you spend. Okay, I totally have to go in a minute because I only have 10% left. But however much time you spend in school like is almost like a handicap to like how much you can question things and reason. It's also, and I noticed this, you know, with someone that was close to me in the past, they had only a high school degree, and this person had such a mindset of like, I can do anything, I can figure out anything. And I didn't have that mindset after spending, you know, 12 plus 6 years in school. I didn't. I thought like someone had to teach me and tell me what to do, and that I had to have a piece of paper saying I was allowed to do it. It took me probably like over a 5-year period. I've like completely removed that from my brain, but I thought that that was true. Like I thought if I wanted to open like a dog grooming business or something, like how hard is that? Like you're going to cut the dog's hair, you're going to wash the dog. How many times have you washed your dog? You know, you're going to cut its hair. Like don't cut the dog. Okay, that's all you got to do. I have dogs. I've had lots of dogs. Not that hard. I would have thought like if you asked me like 4 years ago that I had to get some type of certificate and like study up like how to do that. Okay, like that's how mentally sick like spending a long time in school makes you. Now I realize like, oh, and I would think I needed like insurance and stuff too, and to ask the government's permission and all of those things. Like that is what I thought because I spent too much time in school. But now, you know, I'd be like, I'm gonna just friggin' tell people like, you want me to wash your pet and cut its hair like a poodle or whatever? Bring it on over and I'm gonna figure it out. You know what I'm saying? Like I get out the YouTube, I'll practice on Dave a few times, and there you have it. But that's not what we're taught. Like people that spend too long in school think like I did. They literally think the same exact thing. Like someone has to tell me what to do. I can't figure it out. There's a certain way that has to be done. And it's like, no, they have us all mentally screwed up. Okay, there's so many comments, you guys. I like need to get my charger because I don't want to end and I only have 10%. Skinny jeans definitely hurt your testosterone. That's funny. I thought skinny jeans were out. Okay, I didn't know they were still wearing those. Even though I was popular and an athlete, I hated it. Mental health was much better once I left. Yeah, school. Yeah, as a senior in college, school feels useless now and has taken a toll on my mental, I guess you're saying mental health. Kids cannot be themselves in school. Boys cannot be masculine because they are told to be compliant, kind, and respectful at all times. Yeah, and you know what? I'm going to grab my charger because I have more to say. Oh, wait. Actually, look, my charger was right here the whole time. That's perfect. Okay, but I can't get it right with a setup because you guys, like, seriously, I bought this. I bought like a, hold on, I have to figure this out. Okay, okay, let me try this. No, it's not gonna work. Okay, hold on. It's never gonna work. I have to hold it. Okay, so I bought like a new ring light thing, and it has like a little thing that holds your phone, but I bought one that holds it the wrong direction, so I still can't even use it. And I'm just like, why? Why do I not know how to figure this stuff out? Sorry, I almost tried to block someone by accident. Yes, I have a college degree, but I have many friends from college who refuse to look at source documents and instead rely on Snopes and fact checkers media of their worldview. Yeah, what a waste. School is outdated system. My kids will be homeschooled. I would love to homeschool my kid. How's my house coming along? Oh my gosh. I've almost like, this house project has been killing me. Seriously. Okay, like, I think I told you guys this. I paid about $8,000 probably to have like all the plumbing redone in my house. Well, it turns out all they did was all the water lines and not any of the drain lines. And also, like, my plumber, he charged me $1,400 to put in my clawfoot tub, which was not, I should have gotten a cast iron one because it's kind of like light. It's a ceramic, no, hold on, it's not even ceramic. It's acrylic and it's like kind of too light. So I had my son take a bath the other day, and then I looked and there was like water underneath it, and he had just put it in, okay? And there was like some little drips the next day. And so I checked it and the drain was dripping. And so I messaged my plumber and I was like, the drain's dripping. And he tells me that it's my fault that I moved the tub, even though he'd only put it in like 2 days ago and I had never even used it. Like, only my son had used it. He's like 40 pounds. So he told me if I can't affix the tub to the floor, he wasn't going to fix it, which he didn't tell me that before. And he told me that, like, basically to leave him alone after I gave him $1,400 to install this thing, which was absurd. And I didn't even know it was going to cost that much till he got done. And so I had to get another plumber to come because I was like, I think it just needs some of that tape, like at one of the joints in the drain. And he was like, no, it has a plastic gasket or something, and was just like basically telling me to like F off. And so this was all through text, but I was like, okay. So the other plumber comes, and sure enough, he was like, this type of threading here is supposed to have like plumber putty or whatever. It's like a glue, and they didn't do that. And so he had to fix it. All right. So after I paid them $1,400 and they gave me a leaky tub, I had to have someone else step in and fix it. So guess what? Then I'm like, literally that night, I'm getting something from under my sink, my brand new sink. This one had every single line was new because they had ripped out. There was an old like antique sink there. They had taken that out, which it wasn't even attached at all. They put new lines, put a new vanity and new water lines and new everything, right? So I open it up and there's water underneath that one, like all over my makeup and stuff. And I was like, oh gosh. So I messaged that same plumber again, and he just like flat out ignores me. Like the plumber that did it originally, flat out ignores me. Just doesn't even answer. And I was like, well, I thought you would want to know, you know? Oh, I forgot too, with the tub, he suggested I just get a different tub because that one wasn't good enough, like after I paid him to install it and bought it. So anyways, long story short, the other plumber came and fixed it. Then every sink in the house turned out to be leaking, okay? Like the kitchen sink, which that other plumber didn't do anything to it, but the kitchen sink like is dripping from the faucet. So I had to get a new faucet. He's going to install that. And the other sink in the like other bathroom also leaking, and that has to get replaced. So that's how the house project is going. It's been insane. I did get my concrete driveway, but it's only like halfway. So I had to have them deliver like a ton of gravel too for like the front, because like I got stuck the other day. It wasn't enough. And so it's still very hairy trying to get out of here because there's like big ruts and gravel and water and puddles everywhere. So it's a little bit stressful. But I think I'm gonna have more gravel come tomorrow. What else? I have that plumbing stuff. I'm gonna get a new door. I have like one door that they had to put an outside door inside my house, like just so I had a door, because it turns out there wasn't a door at all. But I'm gonna get like one of the old outside doors because I replaced them all and I just have one hanging out. But so I'll have to get that door replaced, and then like it should be pretty good. Then it's just gonna be little stuff like taking down all these blinds and putting up curtains and like making the house beautiful and stuff. I have some antiques coming too on, I think I showed you all a picture, but like they were going to deliver them the other day and it started raining. So they're going to deliver those and I'll have like a nice setup. Like I got this like awesome, it's probably like from the 1800s desk. Like it's so cool. I showed a picture of it. And then I also got like this beautiful hutch, and they're both super old. So what plumber should we not use? Put his ass on blast. Okay, I am going to put his ass on blast. I actually, you guys don't know this, but I never complain about businesses ever. If I have to tell them something, I usually just tell them personally. I can be like a little bit of a jerk. Like if somebody does something wrong, I'm going to tell them. And that actually goes back to what we talked about with like the being nice and stuff. Like people are very unhappy because they don't say what they actually think. And so I am not always super pleasant, like to be honest, because I actually tell people what I think. And I actually like when people tell me what they think too, because otherwise, you know, that's just having a dialogue. So this plumber though has treated me like absolute garbage, and they took up at least $8,000 from me, I'm pretty sure, between everything that they did. So they're called Matthew and Sons Plumbing, and they absolutely deserve for me to call them out, because literally the guy did not even call me back. He gave me a leaky tub and a leaky sink and just refused to fix them and told me I should buy a different tub. So yeah, Matthew and Sons Plumbing here in Lafayette, Louisiana. Being a house owner is a true test of faith, but these are good life experiences, even though it's stressful at times. Well, I've owned a lot of houses and I've dealt with a lot of stuff, and I've dealt with good plumbers and bad plumbers. I had a plumber at one of my rent houses that couldn't find a gas leak and he wanted me to put in all new pipes. It had 4 gas lines in this house, and he wanted me to run 4 new gas lines for $1,000 a pop, because he couldn't find a gas leak that turned out to be in a handle. Like, and all he had to do was for like, I think the whole thing cost $300. It took this guy 4 days, and this is a different plumber, but 4 days to find it. His boss had to come find it, that this one little knob that you turn was leaking, and that was the reason for the gas. And yeah, so literally, let's see, someone says, remember, spray the house with cedar side? What's that? What's cedar side? Explain. I don't know what that is. But yeah, so anyways, he wanted me to get a whole new he also, that same plumber had tried to get me to buy a whole new hot water heater for my rent house because it needed new heating coils, and like tried to like scam me to say that like, oh, well, the heating coils might work and they might not. Well, it turns out the heating coils are the only thing that does anything. The rest of it just holds the water. So it was like, again, absolutely crazy. The tub itself was the manufacturer fault. No, it was the drain line. They didn't put any plumber glue on it, and it was supposed to have it like the way that the threads were. The other plumber told me like that joint requires glue, and they didn't glue it. And same thing with the sink. They didn't glue that, and so then other plumber came, glued it, and it was fixed. So yeah, I'm just ranting a little bit, but I actually like hate it because I always like I'll pay. You know what I'm saying? Like I will pay you the money that you ask. I'm not going to haggle you down or anything like that. I'm not going to run from the bill or wait forever to pay it. Like I pay you to do the job, and you're going to give me a leaky sink and a leaky bathtub. Like, no, that's not doing the job. I don't care if you did 6 hours of work. It doesn't work if it's leaking all over, destroying my house and my floor. So just irritating. You know how that goes. But otherwise the house process has been good. It's been fun. I'm loving it. Like being out in the country, it's so peaceful. I'm away from my mean neighbor. I don't think I told you guys, but I had this neighbor at my old townhouse, like, that would complain about my son making noise. And I've dealt with this before when I was a lot younger, like when my son was young. I lived in an apartment for a little while, and the neighbor was complaining that my son was too loud. And I was like, and they were like harassing me, and I was so stressed out about it. It's so funny because it's such a testament to what a different person I am. I remember being so stressed out. I was like, we're going to have to move. Like, cause the apartments at that time were like harassing me about the noise all the time. I'm like, it's the middle of the day, you know? But this is what happens. Like, people will try to like push you and push you and push you if they see that you're weak, and they will try to bully you. And that's why it's like, you can't, not to be like a jerk. Like, I used to think I had to be so nice. Like, I was one of those Christians who was like, I have to be so nice that I'm like basically like self-deprecating or whatever, like letting people walk all over me because I'm being so nice. Like, I used to think that that was like a Christian thing to do, you know? But since then, I've like really, really read the Bible more. And just being a mom, like understanding like, well, it's not just me that these people are walking all over. Like, I have a child, I have to protect him. I can't just let the world be unfair to me all the time. So in the past, when I dealt with that, I was like stressed out, and I was like, oh my gosh, you know, and everything. And I was so bullied and so worried about it and stuff. And this time, like, that neighbor come over, and I'm like, don't you come back. Like, do not come and tell me in the middle of the day that my son's being too loud. It's literally the middle of the day. Did he wake you up early in the morning? No. Did he keep you up late at night? No. So you're going to have to go. That is a nightmare. Totally agree. You have to stand your ground. Yeah, because it's like the middle of the day, you know? But people will bully you if you let them. You know, they'll have you scared to be in your own house. But the thing is that people aren't really designed to live like in that type of, you know, like jam-packed together type of quarters. Like, we're just not. Like, we should have space around us. Like, I think because I had lived on like an acre and a half before, and I was like, this is perfect. But although, like, to be fair, on one side there was like a horse, and on the other side there was like a 80-acre cow field. So it felt like more. But I felt like, I'm like, this is what people need. Like, my mental health is so much better. When I had to go back to that townhouse, I was like falling apart, you know, like, not really, but I was like, how can I do this? And you feel like you're just jam-packed in there, especially when you have kids or pets or anything. Ugh, you know, it can be hard. To me, it is. I think that that's like a lot of people's problem. Even living in a neighborhood jammed with people would be rough for me at this point. Like, I want to go outside of my house and look around and see like God's creation, like, not my neighbors. Like, not to be rude, like, I can see my neighbors, like, but they live far enough that like I could wave to them, but I can't hear them talking. They can't hear me talking. Like, you know, I would have to like shout to try to get their attention. That's like how I want to live. Okay. So my mental health situation here has skyrocketed since we moved already. And even though my house is super old, it's like over 100 years old, and it's a fixer upper. So it's like the perfect like horror movie setup, you know, like, you know, you get, I don't know if, does anyone else feel like this before you move somewhere? You're like, is this place going to be haunted? Like, am I the only one that thinks that? So I did definitely think that. I was like, maybe my house is going to be like haunted or something. Some people told me like get it blessed. Some people told me to get my antiques blessed too. But I was like, you know what? It's just like the airplane thing, like where I used to fear it and think like, but now I know like once you have so much faith that you're like, God has like a plan for me. He has a plan for my life. And I know I'm in the middle of it. So nothing's going to happen, you know, like I have faith that if I'm doing the things he wants me to do, like this is going to continue on until like I fulfill his purpose. So I started to, you will grow sharper teeth as a homeowner. Well, I'm a homeowner. Like I've been a homeowner. I bought my first house at 30. I've owned a lot of houses. Like I've owned, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8 or 9 houses. Like I've owned 8 or 9 houses because I had like landlording for a while. I owned like 3 or 4 different houses with my ex-husband, this house, 2 other houses. So I've owned some houses, like, and I'm starting to learn about the process. I have so many tools now. Like y'all see, I put up that flagpole. It gave me hell, but I'm an American, so I got it up. You know, I like those old poles, they're such hardwood, and like the first screws that it gave me, I could not get them through. And then I had to go buy pliers because I had to unscrew them manually because I stripped the screws. I had to buy like decking screws. But that flag is flying, and I feel so good about it because I did it all by myself. And I know it's not a big project, but it did give me a little bit of hell. Yes, I have raised small kids in an apartment until we bought our house with half acre. So many new apartments are going up for housing in cities, owning nothing, dependent on others for so many things. Yeah, like when we lived in one of like our second house when I was married, the yard was so small and they were so close to all the other houses. And then there was like, it was a nice neighborhood, and there would still be like people coming around trying to like steal and break into people's garages and stuff. I'm like, this doesn't really feel safe. It feels like a weird target. And there wasn't even enough room. I'm like, we couldn't even live. Like if shit hit the fan and I had to like build a garden, like there isn't even enough room for a garden. And then like PS, like everyone next door to me is just spraying like poison everywhere to make their yard look good. Like it's just flying over, or like the water is like soaking into your yard. Like you have no control. Like, I mean, you could do it in pots and stuff, but it wouldn't be enough for anything. So that was like the first time when I started to realize like, maybe I need my own space. Like you don't know what's going to happen in the world. Like why are you going to jam your family into this tiny little house in this tiny little yard, totally dependent, totally a target? You know, that house wasn't even that expensive, but it was still more expensive to where it's like you're working for the mortgage, you know? And that was when my mindset started to shift. I mean, obviously that was 2020, like everyone's mindset started to shift, but now I just can't really see, like same thing in that townhouse. I knew it was temporary. We were only there for like total of 6 months, I think. But yeah, even then it's like, well, you know, if stuff got really bad, like it's not like I could do much with this tiny, you know, there was like a plot of yard in the back. So I agree with having space. You know, it's like owning land. Land is something. And obviously I don't have that much land, but I'm also like just one woman, like, so I can't farm like, you know, 10 acres or whatever, take care of it. But, you know, having land is something. It is important. They want to divide you from that. They want you just packed sky high in these little apartments, just going to work, just working to pay, you know, and they charge so much money for those. You know, you're going to be paying for an apartment, like, you know, some people's apartments are very expensive. Like some of my friends back in Seattle, like even years ago, their apartment would be like $1,800 a month. You know, that's like, I don't even know, like if this, I mean, that was more than my mortgage on my big house that I had before. That would be like maybe 4 times the mortgage on this house. You know, it's crazy. And what you're getting for it is like, I guess amenities and stuff, but you like you said, you don't really own anything. I guess you're happy. You don't have to take care of anything. You actually never really have to learn how to use tools or anything like that because they have people that just come around and fix stuff. So if things kind of go south, like, what are you going to do? You don't own any tools. You don't know how to do anything. You don't have any space to do anything. Like, it's not what I wanted. So, but yeah, anyways, I'll probably just wrap it up now because it's been like an hour. I appreciate y'all. I am probably, I'm on 2 podcasts tomorrow. So I'm going to be on with Louisiana Sister Squad to talk about V injury and what happened to my son. And then I am on another one, and I'm like, his name is just escaping me right now, but I'm going to be on another podcast. Somebody that met me from Twitter. I think y'all should definitely come over to Twitter. I want to start doing Twitter spaces. For anyone who is a libertarian, I want to start doing spaces to talk about growing the liberty movement and like selling liberty, like how to make it more of like marketing instead of, because, you know, the Libertarian Party is kind of like edgy, like yellow and black. Like people have there's like a lot of niche people in there, but it's not like super friendly to newcomers. Basically, sorry, my shoe's like sliding on the floor. I put on heels just because I felt like it went with this skirt. I know the shirt doesn't really, but yeah, like, so the Libertarian Party, like, it's fun and stuff, but you know, I come over to Twitter and like no one knows me. They don't know my Instagram and stuff. So everyone's like calling me a Fed and stuff because my Twitter grew fast. And I'm just like, you guys, this is not how you grow the movement by calling people a Fed. It's just like how like all my right-wing friends, it's like, you're an Illuminati, you're a Freemason. Like, no, I'm not. But the libertarians have their own thing. They say like, you're a Fed, you know? So I want to help grow the liberty movement and talk to people about how can we do that to make it more popular, to make it more mainstream, because that does matter. Like, as much as people don't want it to, like, it matters. Like, you have to have good colors. You have to have appealing messaging. I'm going to go off the rails for a second again. Another thing about the liberty movement, why are you laughing? Oh, Fed. That's funny. Another thing about the liberty movement, like, or the Libertarian Party that kind of got me recently that I don't know how to reconcile with exactly, is that I didn't understand like this concept of wanting open borders. Oh, you know what? I probably should just save this. I'll talk about it for a second, but I'm probably going to do a live about why I don't support the Mises Caucus, and do a separate live on that. I do want to start maybe having more of like a podcast format, coming up, and even like streaming on YouTube and stuff to talk about topics and everything. But let's see, sounds a bit skittish to say the least. Yes, good goals. Oh, yeah. So what's interesting is the Libertarian Party, like a lot of people believe in kind of like open borders, or like even more bizarre than that is that the borders would only have to do with private property. So it'd almost be like everyone that lives along the border is like, it's like when you're on the airplane and they tell you like, if you're on the exit row, you have a responsibility to help other people. Well, if you live on the border, like in their idea, you would basically decide if you want to let like immigrants into your property, and then the next person's property would decide if they want to let immigrants into their property, and then like I guess the bordering properties like deeper into the country would then decide, you know, that neighbor would decide like, oh well, you went as far as Bob's house, but you can't come to my house, or yes you can, or whatever. So there'd be this like whatever type of no border system. So that's one thing. It's like private borders, which to me that's like, I don't think you're going to sell people like that. Like, I'm a pretty big libertarian, like almost like I'm almost like ANCAP, you know, but that doesn't work for me because that doesn't make any sense. You know, that's like all of a sudden we're living in like ideological dreamland. Okay. You have to have a border, like my yard. Okay. There was 2 dogs walking through my yard earlier, and I have a fence around my yard, but I don't have a fence around my whole property. So, I mean, so they were on my property, but not in my yard. They're in my property, but they don't know that the border is there, okay? Because the border that they're seeing is, you know, my fence, like around the middle of my house and everything. So that's kind of like, you can't do that because like no one can figure out exactly where they belong or don't belong. And that's just, to me, that's just asking for trouble, because now I'm irritated about these dogs. They're in my yard, but the dog doesn't know that it's in my yard. It doesn't even know it left its yard. Same thing if you're just rolling up on a non-border. You can't even tell, am I in my country anymore? Am I not in my country anymore? That's not very fair to people. So I just don't think, I think that it makes zero sense, and it's like kind of ridiculous that they think that like we should just not really have borders. Here's the other thing with the open border system. You don't have an open border. You're going to have a unidirectional open border. So I can say all day, anyone can come to, you know, if I was like king of America, I could say anyone can come to America anytime. Open borders. Someone says even our cells need borders to function well. That was beautiful. That's exactly true. That is true. And nothing works well when you can't distinguish it from the thing next to it. But so if I was like, I don't know why I said king, I guess I would be queen of the country. I said, you know, there's no borders. Like, I can't even say that. All I can say is that there's no border coming in. I don't control whether or not you come in. I don't care whether or not you come in, right? I can't control if Canada feels the same way. I can't control if Mexico feels the same way. So you have a unidirectional no border system where basically you're telling everyone they can come in, but you don't even know if they can leave. You know, that's like, even buildings don't work like that. Like if you, I don't know if this ever happened to anybody, but like if you go into a building, right, you should be able to exit easier than you got in. Like the worst thing that happens is like when you go into one of those stairwells and you got into the stairwell and then all of a sudden you're realizing like all the doors don't let you into the building and you can't get back out. Like that's the worst thing that you don't want to happen. And so that's like basically what you're setting people up for. Like, oh, come on over to our country. But then you don't even know if they can leave. Like you can't control Canada. You can't control Mexico. So what's the purpose of you're just inviting everyone over, but you don't, like, say if I want to leave because I'm like, well, you invited too many people over and this isn't fun anymore and I want to leave. Well, say Canada and Mexico say like, I can't even go there. Okay, so now I'm trapped here, like, with you just let everyone in. It doesn't make any sense. And I'm not saying that would happen, but these are the kinds of things that I don't think people think about. I don't know. What do y'all think about the borders? Like really quick before I hop off here. Do you think that is holding libertarianism back if they hold on to this idea of like open borders, doesn't matter, only private property matters? Or do you think that that's a mistake and that it's holding back the liberty movement? Does anybody have any thoughts there? No thoughts? No one cares? No one cares if we have borders in magical Liberty Land or not? Hi, Steve. It's almost like no one cares because they think like libertarians will never win. So it doesn't matter. But that's my 2 cents on that. Civilians are not capable of policing and maintaining it. Exactly. And it's not fair. Like, that's just like, saying like you're going to have a responsibility in the exit row. Now, I get like on the airplane, it's one thing, it's probably going to be fine. But this is just asking for trouble. Not the Wild West. Yeah, countries need borders. Exactly. I think that countries need borders. Even if you want to be the most libertarian society ever, like you still need to have a border. Personally, I think we need borders between countries. Yeah, so I think that is something that the Libertarian Party needs to address because sometimes they irritate me a little bit. Like, they get off on these, like, philosophical idealism that doesn't make any sense. So something like we're going to have no borders, like, and everything, or even the no police thing, and that will only have private security and stuff. It's like a utopian dreamland. Like, I am all for liberty, but I also think, and I don't think we should have nearly as many laws as we do, but I'm also like, we need to be practical, and sometimes they're just not being practical. Like, it's not practical to think like you're going to just wave a wand and all the police go away and all the borders. Let's read some comments really quick. I don't know enough about specific libertarian policies because it varies so much, but I agree that it comes across to people as unreasonable or impractical. Yes, it needs to get a lot more practical because no one's getting on board with that. They're like, we've always had police, like we're gonna have police. Even as stuff as like abolish the Fed or abolish the IRS, it sounds great, but we all know, first of all, that's not even gonna happen. So what's the point of saying it? It's like, I can say abolish anything, abolish the sun. That's not gonna happen, like, well, I don't want that to happen, but you get what I'm saying? Like, they come up with these ideas that are like so outlandish, and then we're like parroting them, and I'm like, okay, yeah, it sounds nice and it's edgy, and maybe you're trying to move the needle, but that's all you can do with that because you're not going to be able to implement it. I want to close borders and entry through legal ways only. I think that that's more practical. Someone said, let's see, yeah, personally. So that's my little side issue with libertarianism, learning that people really thought that like we shouldn't have borders and that we should just have, I guess, a unidirectional or open border. That's a little too much for me. The getting rid of the police, all that stuff. But I have also, let's see, 0 of the parties are practical. If more independents were able to win and make a splash, we might have a chance. Yeah. But the other parties are playing by the rules and they're winning. And so it doesn't make sense to come up with ideas that would never even work and try to sell people on them. Listen to Jordan Peterson on death, disease, and politics with Dr. Pierre. I think that's supposed to be like Pierre Thornhill. Did you know I just bashed Jordan Peterson on Twitter and everyone got mad at me? So I could still listen to it because that doesn't mean I hate him, but I was definitely bashing Jordan Peterson and people got mad. People need to go through legal channels, vetted, doing background checks, like my parents and millions of others have done. Yeah, my dad's like, he's an immigrant. I'm like first generation too. So many more people who are in the middle and not hardcore one party. Yeah, exactly. And we could, the Libertarian Party could capitalize on it, but they're not. They're just like missing the moment. It's concerning that such ideology may help. Yes, actually, Shyla_Ann, that is a point. That is something I've been thinking, feeling, but I had never put it into words, I don't think. But that's exactly true because it sounds very New World Order. It sounds very one world ideology, which is scary. And so sometimes even when you really love something, like you really think like, this is the thing, I love this, the messaging's great, the intent's great, you actually have to look out for how it could be implemented in the wrong way, like a dangerous way. And Shyla, you are exactly correct. Okay, you said it's also concerning that such ideology may help usher in NWO due to a lack of sovereignty and power vacuum created by open borders, etc. That is exactly something that I've been thinking when it comes to the libertarian movement and some of these people with their grandiose ideas like that, opening borders, different things. You could very easily usher in the New World Order. You could very easily, that just basically sounds like globalism. No borders, that's globalism. So it's not a good move. It's like a dangerous move and they need to back away from it, but I don't know if they're going to. But I'm actually, Shyla, I don't know if you are on Twitter or not, but I'm actually going to like kind of make a tweet in your honor explaining that exact ideology because it's something I've been thinking about, but you totally hit the nail on the head with the way you said it. So I'm definitely going to tweet that. I'm sure all the libertarians will be angry with me. So as a Christian, I will say no matter what we vote for or plan, God's will happen. The best we can do is spread his word and prepare ourselves for heaven. That's exactly true. But I also think like the world is a spiritual battle and it's also a spiritual test. So in my opinion, God puts us here to figure out what type of people we are. Now, whether or not that's true, I don't know. But this is how I feel. I'm here. God wants to see what I'm made of. Am I a warrior for him? Am I a warrior for the truth? Am I going to do the right thing? Or am I just like a lackluster human being that's just like hanging out, just like trying to like enjoy my car and like impress my friends with my clothes and stuff? Like, am I that person? I'm not saying those are bad people. Like, they're not. They might even go to heaven just as well as somebody who, felt like they fought the good fight. I'm not saying that. But I think that, if you want big responsibility, you have to take on a big role. And if you like are called to do something, like God wants you to fulfill it. So I do feel that we have to push back when we see wrong things. But I exactly agree with Shyla_Ann with her point about you have to look at like, is the thing that I'm pushing for, and this has come up for me other times too, and I want to think about when they were exactly, but there's been other times when, that's it. There's something that I was really interested in and that I was passionate about talking about, and I still try to talk about sometimes because I think it's interesting and it's a good idea, but the other part of me in the back of my mind says like, this will probably be used for evil instead of good. And if you continue pushing this, you might be pushing to help usher in evil, and that's not what you want. So that is the blockchain voting system that I talked about. For whatever reason, in the back of my mind, like when I talk about it, I get passionate about like, why aren't we blockchain voting? Why aren't we doing this? That sounds like pure democracy, first of all. It is interesting and it could bring a voice to the people. But the other thing is you're like, is this really... And I don't know why. Like right now, I can't exactly put into words even why I felt like this blockchain voting thing like would be used more for evil, but like I started to feel that way, and it just got harder for me to like continue to share about it or talk about it or try to push it. Like I'd try to be like, no, it's good, but then the other part of me is like, but is it? Like, I don't know, like this could easily be a stepping stone for something we don't want. And so I think we have to be really mindful of that and look at like the things that we try to push or the things that we try to believe in or stand behind. Like, is this really going to be used the right way, or could this accidentally be bringing in something worse? So let's see what you said. Of course, Lightning Rod IG just kicked me off on that note and had to rejoin. Oh yeah, exactly. You talk about anything and it kicks you off. When I was talking about the CB products earlier and side effects, it literally like paused my video for a second, even though I have 5G 4 bars or whatever, 3.5. 3 bars. This is why you need a podcast. You were getting off 45 minutes ago. Yeah, I think I will do a podcast. I want a different format though, because everyone talks about the news and everything. I think digital gas has the potential for anything digital. Okay. Anything digital has the potential for evil. Yeah, it definitely does. Yeah. So I'm thinking about doing a podcast, maybe like, on YouTube or something, but I want a different format because there's 2 things that people usually do. Either the news, which is good. Like we could talk about the news, we can talk about medical stuff, all of that, kind of a unique perspective there. Or people talk about, they just do interviews with the same people, and they kind of go on like a circuit of like, let's do an interview with all these different people. Are you on Rumble? Yeah, I'm on Rumble, but apparently like you'll never really make money on Rumble. So, I am on Rumble, but I think I only have like maybe just hit like 100 followers, and I haven't put any videos on there for like a little bit. So I'm probably going to try YouTube, and I actually just made a Patreon too, but I don't know how to use it yet or like upload videos or anything, but that would be a good step. But I was thinking about doing a podcast as more of like a roundtable talk, kind of like what we're doing here. We're just chit-chatting and stuff. But because I really like the engagement on Twitter. I like to ask questions over on Twitter, and people give really, really interesting answers. So I was thinking about maybe doing a podcast that's a little bit more like devoted to some of like, here's a tweet, here's what I asked, here's some of the answers that people gave, like what do you think? And we have more of like a philosophical like back and forth. I don't know what anyone thinks about that, but I thought that would be kind of fun because I like the most funnest thing to me ever is like asking questions, looking at something and thinking like, how can this be seen differently? And that's something that's been really, really fun. Like I'm saying on Twitter, like I ask a question, people weigh in all kind of answers. There's like side conversations, really fun. So I'm like, if I could make a podcast that's kind of like that, where we're literally just questioning things and going over like the different lines of thinking and kind of evaluating them, that would be like the most fun thing for me. And I think it'd be like a little bit different, like something people don't normally see, because it's very interesting when you ask a question like, let's see, what was a good one? I had asked, that sounds valuable and not just an echo chamber. Yeah. And that's, yes. Yeah. Not just an echo chamber. So the thing is that people come up with different lines of reasoning, and there are like, some of them are all good. And then there are some that are like, oh, I don't really agree with this, but it's still kind of interesting. And it's like, you can't really, people get offended really easily, and they want to hear what they want. Like they want parroted back to them what they think, but that's not really a healthy way to live, and you're not really going to learn much like that. So I like to hear people's different ideas, especially, okay, like the open borders thing. I never thought that I would like open borders, but I listened to all the people that talked about the open borders and all of the points that they made, and I thought it was interesting, and some had different reasons, like constitutionally, why they thought like open borders was the way, that we used to have things, and some talking about like why it wasn't. So I learned a lot. I learned about, I wish I had my little constitution, but there's like Article 4, Section 4, I think, where it talks about like the federal government has like the responsibility to protect our borders from invasion. And then I learned from other people, like sometime in the 1800s was kind of when they like actually started to like enforce like systems to cross the border, or for immigration and things. So that was interesting, but I never would have realized, if we hadn't had those conversations, the fact that what they want is a unilateral open border. Like I had to hear everyone's explanation and really put thought into it before I realized like, well, we wouldn't have open borders. So it's pointless, because all we would have is let everyone in, but you don't get to decide if they get to leave. You can't say like, well, Mexico, you have to let us go there too without asking for all these requirements. No, you can't control that. Would definitely violate their boundaries. It's a different country. So what you have is no border for your country, and then basically, like Shyla said, like you're trying to usher in the new world order here. And I never would have known that if I hadn't listened to both sides of the argument. And that's why it's so important. I also think, just like people said, it's such an echo chamber. People are so afraid to like question things. They also, like, a lot of people on the internet really align behind someone. Like, there are a lot of accounts that I really like where the people are like big Trumpers, and I'm not saying that that's wrong or anything, but it's almost like now they don't have anywhere to go now that like it's becoming pretty apparent. Like, Trump's probably not going to be president again. Like, we just need to move on. He was super into the V product, Operation Warp Speed, all that stuff. He's losing support. You know, people are shifting. If you made your whole brand and your whole everything you talked about Trump, like, that's why people they're getting bored of you. Like, and I'm not just saying like we come on here just to make content, just to like entertain and dance for the public, but you've also made yourself a unilateral person. Like, you've made yourself somebody who's like, this is what I am. I'm, a MAGA Trumper or whatever. Is that what you are? Maybe that's what you were at the moment, but we shouldn't define ourselves like that. Like, you need to understand, like, if he does something crazy that you don't like, you don't have to support him anymore. You can move on. And that's why it's very important to center yourself, like, on yourself, on your principles, and, on God. So somebody said, why don't we all go protest at our local mayor or governor's office? What are we protesting? I don't even know what we're protesting. DeSantis is no better either. There is no good option now. Yeah, and, the Rand Paul stuff kind of disappointed me. I don't think I ever did a live on this, but basically, Rand Paul helped push through, he co-sponsored a bill that pretty much like did away with like the FDA requirement for like pharmaceuticals basically, and I think maybe other stuff too, to be tested on animals, and they want to use computer models and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, maybe that's fine, but we also need to realize that who does this really benefit? Like, yeah, we can say it benefits the animals, but in the end of the day, like, it really benefits Big Pharma, more than it benefits the American people. So that was kind of a letdown, because I really liked Rand Paul. I was kind of like holding on to him. He also, have that Pfizer PAC document. I think he had accepted money from the Pfizer PAC, and also, as you know, he's from Kentucky, and Kentucky GOP just got $1 million from Pfizer to build themselves a brand new headquarters. So none of that looks very appealing to me anymore, and it's just upsetting, because it's not just him, it's just the Uniparty. The Uniparty is literally like the right, it's the political branch of Big Pharma. They probably have researchers, they have marketers, they have administrators, they have all that stuff in their big company, and then they basically have, the government branch too, which is like pretty much everyone that's in office that they give campaign donations to and spend lobbying money on. Protest the North American Constitution, Biden, Trudeau. What in Mexico president signed and agree on? What is that? I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, some North American, they made like a pact or something. Send it to me. Do y'all not know about this latest Biden action to destroy America? I don't think I know exactly about that. They use computer models for the V product. Yes. And they also use computer models to tell us how many people were going to die of CV. And that's why they locked us all in their houses. And that never made sense to me, because I was like, a computer model only knows what you put in, and it only knows what you know. So it can only do multiplication basically. But they're like, no. John Hopkins this. I'm like, John Hopkins is lying to you, first of all, or they want to like seem like they know something that they don't. But no matter what, like, the computer model needs data put in. You put in the data. It can't tell. There was no test then. Like, it can't go out there and say there was all these 5,000 asymptomatic people, or 10,000 people that actually got it before you thought, or, any of that stuff. It only knows what you told it. So it never made sense to use a computer model just to scare you and multiply, the numbers that they had, because we don't know if those were the real numbers. And that, I'm sure it will be the same problem when they try to use it for the animal testing. Somebody said yes. Yeah, so anyways, it's almost 10 o'clock. I have to be up early, so I should probably get off. I definitely want to do a podcast, though, where it's just basically stuff like that. We're going to ask questions. We can go over the Twitter answers. Actually, that would be a super fun format, because then people can go on Twitter ahead of time, answer the question, have conversations, and we can kind of go over like what different people thought, kind of the back and forth and stuff. And then, it would be like a live, so people can throw their opinions on there too. But also, like, it would give you some time to be a little bit more educated on the topic, because if I ask the question, maybe it's like Monday, we do the live on Tuesday, like you could have some time to brush up. So I think that would be kind of fun. We need to continue to develop as individuals to prepare for whatever reality is coming our way in the future. We have to negotiate from a position of strength no matter what happens with politics. Exactly. I 100% agree with that. That's Shyla Ann again. She has some really, really good points tonight. I totally agree. We need to just prepare ourselves, be as strong as possible, be as healthy as possible, take control of our lives as much as possible, be as least dependent on the government as we possibly can. And then we don't need to just like bend to every little thing that they say, because just like my neighbor who used to complain that my son was loud during the middle of the day, once I bent and said, I'm sorry, and I'll try to be better and stuff, what happened? The harassment just continued. And that's exactly what happened when they locked us all in our house, a few years ago. Then they didn't want to let us out until we took their products, and I could go on about this forever, because basically they've been doing that with animals for decades, and then children, and then adults, and it's just only going to get worse because we never push back. Bible studies would be interesting. Yeah, Bible studies is interesting. I'm not I read the Bible, but I'm obviously not like a pastor or anything. Like, I interpret it as best as I can, but I don't know if I'm qualified to talk on that. But I guess it doesn't matter, because anyone who reads and feels the Bible probably can. But also, it's one area where I don't want to lead people the wrong way. So I try to just always say this is what I'm convicted to feel, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm 100% right. But yeah, I'll probably come back. So like I said, I have 2 podcasts tomorrow. I'm going to start doing a bunch more stuff in February. Can't wait. But I will probably come back with, talk about, I'll probably do like a little episode on why I don't support, I'll probably come back with why I don't support the Mises Caucus, and do a little live there soon. But thank you all so much. I hope y'all have a fantastic night. Hope that shed a little bit of light on that FAA thing, educates you a little bit on what they look out for pilots and everything. Why I'm not really that worried about it, but I still think it's something to take note of and interesting. And also the more pressing issue, which very interesting, is that they make them wait for 48 hours after the CV products, when they don't do that with traditional V products. So, except for the rabies one, that one's kind of crazy. So, all right, y'all, have a fantastic night. Please follow me on Twitter. Do you plan to build a storage shed? I have a storage shed already. It just needs to be fixed up a little bit. Maybe I'll do a little tour of it soon. But thank you all so much. Have a great night. Please follow me on Twitter. It's THT Liberty Chick. There wasn't enough room for the A. So THT Liberty Chick. Come over there, hang out, answer questions. We'll use them for the podcast. I'm probably going to start a YouTube channel soon. I am on Facebook now, but I've been bad. I haven't really been posting there. It's just for memes and stuff, basically the same content you'll get here on Instagram. I just wanted to try to fire it up in case I try to stream over there later to do lives. YouTube, and I started a Patreon, but I don't have it up yet, and I don't know exactly how to do any content on it, so I'll probably try to get there. One thing before I wrap up, I want to ask y'all, do you read written articles, and do you think that those are valuable, or do you only get them from more official sources? What do y'all think there? Do you prefer video content from smaller creators, or do you like articles? If you don't care, you don't have to answer, which it seems like no one cares. I'm just wondering, because I basically only really read articles from either mainstream or Children's Health Defense and stuff. But someone said, great job. Thank you. All is good. Thanks. Okay. Yeah. A blog. Yeah. Maybe a blog, but more, I watch videos both for me. Okay. Yeah, either maybe not a blog, but I guess more informational articles, but we'll see. I'll see whatever seems to be the best stuff. I actually have decent grammar when I do write. I know y'all are like, I have so many typos on here, but it's just because I'm always making everything on the fly and not editing it. But articles are from the Gateway Pundit, but typically reels on Insta. Yeah, I like Gateway Pundit a lot. They have really good info. Well, thank you all so much. Have a great night, and I will be back soon, and we'll talk about why I no longer support the Mises Caucus. Probably Wednesday, I'm thinking. All right, good night.